Everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is, and I was starting a countdown yesterday. We have a 9-webinar series, 3 weeks. This is webinar 6. So we are in full motion in this series. And I am very excited to have Jevonya Allen here today. I'm going to introduce her in a minute. I want to do a few quick housekeeping pieces for everybody. First thing is, this whole series was a good idea that just continued to grow, and it's a combination and collaboration with Dee Dee Chatham out of URI Innovate, with John Dunn from the College of Business, and Linnell Bickford from the URI Foundation and Alumni Engagement. It really, the whole idea is around accessibility. So we know lots of people are interested in businesses. I talk to people all the time, whether it's that they're thinking creatively, or they're thinking about how do I get and build more experience and really demonstrate that I can do something, or there's somebody who say, I've always wanted to be my own boss, here's where I want to go. But we also know it can feel intimidating. And so that's the whole idea behind this series. It's about finding what's right for you, whether that's a part-time or a full-time venture, whether that is something you go in with a ton of money that you can invest, or whether you say, really, it's what's in my pocket today. It's about a thing and a system and a business that works for you. I will record this session. Afterwards, I will send out a follow-up that will share the recording. I will share any notes. So I've gone over with Jevonya. We've identified some of these really key resources that she wants to share. But if there is other things that she mentions, I'll take a note and I'll make sure I send that out to everyone. A reminder that this conversation is based on Jevonya's experience. This is not meant to be one-on-one advising for anybody. And the big thing is you all lead. We're creating this session. We want it to be interactive, and we really want to get your questions answered. So at any point, you can use the chat feature to write in a question or Q&A, and I will stop at whatever point's natural and share your question. Quick recap. This is the end of phase 2. Next week we go into phase 3. Phase 1 was talking all about ideas, how to get an idea. And it was really starting to think about categorizing the types of business that are possible, about you having a lot of personal assessment to understand why you want to do this, to understand what you can put into it. So that's the time, that's the money, but that's also that kind of emotional head and heart risk. And then going through, what do you have? What skills are you bringing? So that talent inventory, an industry you might be familiar with, what that network looks like in your personal life, in your professional life, in your education, and then if there's a real niche that you like. In that series, we had 5 different alumni that came in as our guest speakers, all amazing. Phase 2, what we talked about earlier in this week, RISBDC and URI Innovate, both being, when we talk about accessibility, if you're part of the URI community, these are right here at URI. So whether you are an alum or a student or part of the extended community, it's something that's here for you. Tons of different resources. Financing we touched upon, and then we really focused on the business model canvas as a way of starting to really prepare your idea further. And today we have Jevonya Allen. So Jevonya was actually a recommendation from one of my colleagues. I was saying, I'm looking for URI alumni who own businesses. She said, all right, I have this person for you to speak to. And we had a great conversation, and I got really excited because as Jevonya was talking, she was talking a lot about being able to utilize resources, so many different resources, first of all, but second of all, maximizing them. So I think it's easy to kind of get to collect data and information and build this pile of stuff. And what she was talking about was, yeah, sure, I gather information, but then I'm acting upon things. And in being able to do that, being so highly structured. And I was thinking about what are the resources you need? She had a bunch that she used, but then also what are the internal resources? And when she started talking about structure and really having this systematic day, it made sense that this would be a perfect area for Jevonya to talk more about her experience and how she got her business going. So one of our URI alumni in psychology, also Masters of Education, minister and mother of 3. So as I was writing this out too, I was like, independent associate with this, executive director with class. And it started building out and I was going, wow, you really do have to lean on that structure. So of the other additional things that I find really interesting is, a lot of us, and one of the things we talked about in our first week is people will say, I don't have time to start a business. And I feel that way, definitely. And I have children myself. And so to have an alum who can come here and say, yep, and I've also done it too. So I'm very excited to have you, Jevonya. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to add? I mean, this is a very brief kind of overview of your bio, and then the next one we're going to talk more about your business, but what did I miss?
Oh my goodness, you didn't miss anything, Audrey. You did fantastic. Just looking at that, I wonder how I am able to get all of this done as well. So I'm really excited about, sharing a few of the skills and tricks that I've used to get to where I am today. So you've done a great job. Let's go.
So tell us about your business, Twisted Networking.
Why? Alrighty, so I got started with Twisted Networking in 2017. I really just started it as a feeder for my Legal Shield business. I needed ways to get clients. Legal Shield is a network marketing company, and so after you go through your friends and your family, you need to find clients. And so I got introduced to the networking scene here in Rhode Island, which I had no idea that it existed. But on that scene, there were things that just did not fit my lifestyle. As the slide before said, I have 3 kids. I was actually a foster mom, and I've adopted these 3 children. I ended up being a single mom with 3 teenage sons, and I couldn't go to these events that were 7 o'clock in the morning, or they were 7 o'clock at night, or they were $700 to join. But I understood the value of networking events. So when I could go, I was studying them and looking at what they were doing. And I basically took the best of all of their worlds and created my own system, which I called Twisted Networking. And I just started it to basically bring people together to talk about their business. It was a cost-effective way to market, especially as a startup, because it's expensive to start a business. And if you don't have the resources, it could be intimidating as well. And so 8 months in, I had to have foot surgery. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm on this great streak with this business. I can't stop doing this event. And I asked someone else to host my event for me. And that's when I realized that I had a duplicatable system. So Twisted Networking is really designed to help startups, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, mompreneurs to promote their business in a comfortable, safe space. We have our relationship building activities. We had events in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, North Carolina. We've been in Florida, Virginia. Now we're doing virtual events. And this week has been amazing because we reached Colorado, we reached New Hampshire, we reached New York, we reached Malaysia, and we reached the UK. So it's been phenomenal.
So one of the things I love too, because when my conversation with Jevonya and in looking at your website, one of the things is you are a self-proclaimed introvert. And, we talk all the time about networking and genuine networking, but we have a lot of people who say either I'm introvert and I feel uncomfortable, or I'm shy and I feel uncomfortable. Sometimes they're both, but I like so much of what we talked about is like, where's the problem? And I think what you had said, which is, listen, some of these things, the timing is not available. Some of these things, the cost is too much to participate. But then maybe it's me and it's the system does not work for me when I walk into these rooms.
Exactly.
What makes yours different? So how do you structure a networking event?
So it just reminds me of the first event that I went to, and I can remember the feelings. I don't remember anything else, but I remember the feeling. I was hyperventilating. It was the most uncomfortable thing ever. I had to leave the event, get myself back together, to come back in, because you walk into this room of hundreds of people and there's no one to greet you. You don't know anybody there, so it was very awkward. And I vowed that I would never have people feel uncomfortable. at one of my networking events. So for one thing, we keep them small. Our in-person events, we max at 16 people. Our virtual events, we max at 11, and that includes the person facilitating the event. Because I want everybody to be seen and I want everybody to be heard. And I want you to leave feeling like you know what the other person does. I've been to these events where there's 30 and 40 people and your pitch 25 or 30, you know, and nobody's going to remember what you said. Nobody really cares because they're so stressed out about their pitch. So I decided to create a structure where I provide questions in the beginning. I give you a question to break the ice. So you don't have to worry about what do I say to this stranger, because it gets difficult to meet new people as we get older. I make sure that we're respectful of people's time, because I've been to events where people just talk to you for 30 minutes and you never get a chance to say anything. So I'm very big on time. I make sure that everybody gets a chance to be heard several times during the event. And I create relationships at the event that will ultimately translate into business down the line.
One of the things I appreciate, and we have a question that I'm going to read in just a second. One of the things that I just want to repeat, though, is what you had said about in-person events are 16 people, but virtual are 11. And I've been on lots of virtual stuff. I see a complete benefit, but this goes against what people say, right? You say, well, I can get 1,000 or more people technically, depending on what platform you use. Zoom. So Zoom has what, 1,500 or something, like depending on what program you have. Why would you take a platform where you could have really an unlimited, essentially, amount of people and say, I'm going to actually make it even smaller and do 11?
Well, I'm focused on quality over quantity. You can have 1,000 people in the room, but you're actually only going to actually have a conversation with 2. I found at those big events with hundreds of people, I really only ended up connecting with 2 outside of the events. When you have screens and screens of people, you're just another person on a screen. And I'm really into the intimacy of a networking event. The relationship is what's most important to me. I found that people not only get business from our events, but their life enhances. I've had people start businesses. I've had people become best friends out of our events. So it's more about building you up as a person, both professionally and personally. It's not just about, you know, having a bunch of people on the screen to say I had a bunch of people on the screen. I really want people to have meaningful relationships, because that's going to actually return in the long run.
So our question is, what are some of the questions you use as icebreakers?
Nice. And that's probably like my favorite part of the meeting, because most of my questions are not business questions, and people expect to be asked business questions. So some of my questions could be like, what are your favorite things to do? What do you like to do for fun? What are 3 of your strengths? What are on your goals list? What's something you'd like to try but you're scared to try? What's the most adventurous thing you've ever done? So it gives us a more personal look into you as a person, rather than you just handing me your business card and giving me a pitch about, you know, legal insurance. Like, you know, why would I do business with you? And the key with networking is understanding that people do business with people they like, know, and trust. It's really not about your product that you're selling, because I can Google anything. But why am I going to support your business? And it's usually because I like you, I know you, and I trust you. So we ask more interpersonal questions than business ones.
And do you see results from that?
I do. After the events, we do a wrap up, and I have everybody share what they like most about the event. And it's usually they love the questions, that the questions are not business related, and it gives them the chance to be authentic and be who they are. Typically, we just get caught up with, I am my business, I am Twisted Networking, but I'm still a person. I'm still Jevonya. I just represent Twisted Networking. That's another aspect of who I am and what I do. And so it's very rewarding, and it helps people to look at themselves differently, because those are questions we don't even ask ourselves usually. Most of us don't know what our strengths are. And if someone asks you what your strengths are, you're gonna be like, well, what are my strengths? What do I like most about myself? And that's one of the most interesting questions that we ask. What do you like most about yourself? And people get so stuck on it.
And uncomfortable. We talk about this all the time. And it's definitely one of the ones where it's funny because if you're talking about your business, you have to be able to be excited and share. But when I do this with people who are talking about resumes or interviewing, they get really worried that they're bragging. And that winds up being this very uncomfortable line of, I don't know what to tell you to make it sound like I'm being true and not putting somebody else down.
Right.
So do you find like if people can work through that question, that helps with their connection, or it just breaks the
it helps with confidence too, because you have to have a measure of confidence to start and run a business. And if you're not comfortable with who you are and what you stand for, it's going to resonate to your conversations with other people. This is going to come off. It's going to really be fake if you're not genuine within inside yourself. So at my events, I strive to also teach people how to connect with themselves, and then it will translate into their business as well.
So let's talk a little bit more about yours and the starting of yours. You generously had gone back and forth with me, mentioned a few resources that have helped you start your business. I put them down. So Center for Women in Enterprise, Rhode Island Score, Urban Ventures, and then the books. Can we go through each of these? How did Center for Women in Enterprise help you?
When I was thinking about these different places that I went to, I actually did not go to them for Twisted Networking. I went to them because at one point in time, my mother and we were going to open a daycare center. After URI, I got my bachelor's in psych, and then I got my master's in early childhood education. And we were going to open a daycare center. So I said, let me go to these places and figure out how you open a daycare center here in the state of Rhode Island. But then the market changed and we decided not to open the daycare center. But going to the CWE, I learned about how to pick a business entity. I learned how to network. I learned about CPAs and how to structure a business. Those were the tips that I got from going there. They have free classes where you can go. You learn how to actually write a business plan and those different things that come into developing a business. And I didn't realize that it would translate down to what I do now with Twisted Networking, because all of those resources that I got from there, I'm able to apply in creating my own franchise.
And we have a question, so I'm going to stop for this question. Do you have employees in all the markets you're running events in, or are you traveling all the time?
So initially, in the in-person, I would travel. When you start a business, you are everything. You are marketing, you are CEO, you are receptionist, you are everything. So when I started my event in Virginia, I partnered with someone I met on Facebook. My mom and I drove to Virginia and I went down there and started the group. When I started my group in Florida, I flew to Florida and I partnered with somebody and I started a group there. North Carolina, I actually flew there and I started the group over there as well. Currently, I have interns. I have 2 interns. One is in Florida and one is in Georgia. They are paid college interns, so I do consider them employees, but they're 1099s, and we go through a college app called Pangea. But for the most part, I don't have W-2 employees. The way Twisted Networking is set up is I'm a part of your marketing strategy. So I partner with independent sales reps and they become independent contractors with me.
So Jevonya, you mentioned that you met somebody through Facebook. Mm-hmm. Where did you meet these other partners, these other people you're partnering with?
So one of them, the one in Florida, I knew her through business because we both were in Legal Shield together. And I told her, this is what I'm doing to grow Legal Shield. Maybe you can do it too. And we set up a group in Florida and I went down there and I actually built her group strictly online. So it was fantastic. And then the gentleman, his name is Kareem Canston. I met him here in Rhode Island. He's a business development coach, and he works with 10K small business program through CCRI.
Yeah, it's the Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs,
Yep.
yes.
Okay.
And I told him, hey, this is what I'm doing. He saw what I did, and he was trying to move to North Carolina. So we set up a group there, and he was able to establish his network there.
Okay. That's interesting. And I'm going to add in, my mom did have a daycare at home.
Oh, really, baby? Oh, it was so much fun. I absolutely loved it.
Did you?
I did. My mom's probably watching right now. Hey, Mom.
That's horrible. What about SCORE? So SCORE has come up a few times. So Center for Women in Enterprise, I think, has come up once. SCORE has come up a few different times. How did you connect with?
So when I think it may have been through the firststep.com for the state of Rhode Island. It's a website where it tells you about different resources on how to start a business. And I heard about SCORE, and I went over there, and they're usually retired executives, C-suite executives, CPAs, who offer their services for free. And that's when I really got into the nitty gritty of how viable this business is going to be, and asking those deep questions about starting this business and the logistics and the competition and what a business plan entails, and are you really cut out for this? So they're more of, business coaches and mentors to help you along the process. Being that I didn't have a lot of money, the fact that they were free was amazing. So you just go online, and they're a nationwide organization. So you can find a SCORE counselor, and you go there, you tell them what your business idea is, and they give you resources and ideas and thoughts on how to bring it to fruition.
Yeah, so I'm going to stress that on both of those. So SCORE being national, so wherever somebody is right now. And then I didn't realize this, because I always thought of Center for Women in Enterprise being Rhode Island's resource, but they are in a lot of New England, so 4 different states, and now having their own veteran business outreach program. Those were really, I think, more accessible resources than you realize, whether you're in Rhode Island or not. What about Urban Ventures?
So Urban Ventures, I actually just learned about Urban Ventures a few months ago. The city, I live in Providence, and the mayor had a business open house event downtown, and I decided to go to this event, and I met Ron Crossan, who is the executive director of Urban Ventures, and I didn't know they exist right here in Providence, and so he might be watching. Hey, Ron. So Ron and I meet on a weekly basis, and Ron gets to see the nitty gritty behind Twisted Networking. He gets to see me when I'm very uncomfortable. He stretches me beyond anything that I've ever imagined. He has me talking about writing books and being interviewed by Oprah. So it's a great resource for startups. It's also free, where you get a knowledgeable business development coach that will help you go through this process of entrepreneurship.
So when we talk about access, I think all of these pieces being free resources or things that are low cost, this is a huge part, especially for somebody who's saying, I'm not sure I'm even there. You said, when you're really getting very serious about thinking about it, you got to really kind of tease out the idea and see, is there a market for this, by having some of these conversations. So I think that's really important. You had shared 3 different books. Tell me why these are helpful to you.
So I once heard it said that leaders are readers. And once I heard that, it was like, okay, you have to get into reading books on a regular basis. The first book, Feel the Fear Anyway, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, just the name in itself makes me motivated. What I learned is you're gonna feel fear. This is a normal feeling. But what most people do is they let that fear paralyze them. They think that they're the only person feeling that fear. As I mentioned earlier, the introvert in me is like, no, you don't do interviews, Jevonya. You just don't do this. And it's a feeling of fear that's within me. But this book said, you're gonna feel it, Jevonya, but just do it. just do it anyway. And so I really appreciated the lessons in that book. And I might learn different tricks to get myself through that, different fears, but it's a very powerful lesson. The Maxwell Daily Reader, I've been reading that book for 10 years. It's one of those books where it never stops. It's 365 days of insight to develop the leader within you and influence those around you. So every year you reread the same book.
Okay.
So each day it's a different leadership tip. It's very powerful, especially when you're very busy and you might not have time to sit down and read a 300-page book. You can read 5 minutes of a leadership tip. And so that was very helpful for me, especially having 3 children and trying to figure out how to do everything on my own. And I still read that book, even though I have more time, I still love it. And the E-Myth, it just actually helped me look at my business differently. Before the E-Myth, I was afraid to say that I created a franchise, which to me, the word franchise was a bad thing. But after reading the E-Myth, it helped me to understand that this idea that you have should be designed to translate to someone else in the future. You want to make sure that you have systems in place because you want your business to live on past you. And so that's what the E-Myth is all about. It's about this entrepreneurial thought that we have that this business is just mine, it's just for me. But when you want to look at your business, you want to look at it as a system that is duplicatable for generations to come.
So I appreciate a bunch of different things. One is we've talked a lot about fear and people saying, okay, well, normally time's a big issue, but right now I do have more time than normal because I'm not commuting, I'm not doing these other things. But now it still comes down to fear. And I think some of the people I like to follow, one of them talks about everything as being a muscle. And so when it comes to fear, like knowing and having it normalized that, yeah, we feel it and that's okay, but also we can keep exercising through it. And the more we practice, the less uncomfortable it gets, but also we're challenging ourselves. John Maxwell has tons of stuff. He's definitely one of the ones, and I think you can correct me on this one. I think he's also the person who said you should be reading at least 20 minutes a day or starting your day. Okay. And the E-Myth, so we had somebody who spoke last week and they were talking about they're part of a lot of these big president and leadership groups. And one of the big mottos is that you should have an exit plan to your business from the time you start. And it sounds like what you're saying, which, it could be used in any number of ways. It could be used to say, I want to duplicate this process. Like I've invested in it. I think there's value. I need to duplicate it. Or it could be, I'm doing this right now, and my next chance or the next kind of evolution of my own development is I'm going to pass it on to somebody else.
Yep.
I think those are really neat. We do have a question about your business, and do you charge people to come to your events? So how do you make money off your business?
I do. So in-person events, it was a little bit more difficult to make money on ticket sales. So what would happen is the facilitator would purchase my kit, because I have a kit that runs this meeting. It comes with the questions to ask. It comes with a whole system. It comes with training and everything. So they would purchase my kit from me and they would pay me a monthly fee to use my system.
Okay.
Which was reasonable, nothing astronomical, something that was affordable to them. So now with the virtual world, they still purchase my kit. That has not changed. I just created a digital kit. Before I had an actual bag that I would hand over to you, but now it's an electronic kit. I send it over to you. It's a Google Doc. You pay for my system, and we split ticket sales. So typically a person would spend $12.24 to come to our event. Eventbrite gets $2.24. So we split $5 a piece per person.
So 12.24 is a pretty unique number.
People will always remember that. So we split ticket costs because I want the facilitator to still get paid for their time and get the leads for their business. And I'm not necessarily doing Twisted Networking to make me rich. which I know it has the potential to, but that's not where my heart is. I want it to be a cost-effective marketing strategy. So in essence, you would pay $12.24 to come to an event. I would get $5. The facilitator gets $5. Eventbrite gets $2.24.
So on those lines, and I appreciate it because we had somebody in one of our other sessions who really had kind of like a social entrepreneurship. And it sounds almost like Twisted Networking kind of has these two veins, one being that social entrepreneurship, that social, like, I want social good. I want to help others get there. And yes, their costs, and yes, my time is valuable, but I want it to be able to meet their needs. But then the second part I'm wondering is, how has it helped you grow your own business? You are now in the driver's seat of networking in quite a few different areas.
Yeah. So with my Legal Shield business, because I started it to feed Legal Shield, I'm able to recruit people. People know me as a Legal Shield rep. So when they need products or services, I'm considered a person of influence now in the community. So they trust me when it comes to that. But I didn't imagine for Twisted Networking to become a business in itself. So now it's like, when I'm at a Twisted Networking event, I have to be Twisted Networking. And so I spend a lot of my time promoting Twisted Networking more than I do Legal Shield. And I still have a team that does Legal Shield. And one of the nice things about Legal Shield is it's network marketing and you can build residual income. So I have a stream of income that comes in from that. But now I'm actually building both, but I do devote most of my time to Twisted Networking. And I'm only 3 years in, so it's still a baby.
Sounds like it's one with a lot of good energy behind it.
It's fine.
So I'm going to remind people, and we've had some people using Q&A and the chat feature. If you joined on a little bit later, at any time, you can type your questions in. We have questions that we know people are asking about, so we've already set those, but yours are king. So along these lines of the open mind, you have information coming from a lot of different areas. And it's easy to get stuck on either just researching, or it's easy to really gravitate towards the things that feel more comfortable. We were talking about that fear factor. How is keeping an open mind, how would you define an open mind? And how have you kept one to grow your business?
Awesome. So keeping an open mind, to me, I see it as being able to find solutions to problems. Typically, we just think, okay, I have this problem and this is what it is. But in my head, it's like, I have to figure out how to solve this problem. What can I do? And I have to be flexible and I have to be adaptable, because life and business, none of it ever turns out the way we think it should look. And so when I was preparing this, I was thinking about, like, where did this open mind come from? How did this happen in my life? And it just took me back to, when I was a kid and deciding on what I wanted to be when I grew up. We always say, what are you going to be when you grow up, Audrey? What did you want to be? Jevonya wanted to be a nurse. Jevonya wanted to be a teacher. That's what most little girls want to be. And that's what happens. And, when I had my first opportunity to act on that was in high school, when I got to choose which high school I wanted to go to. I wanted to go to Mount Pleasant High School because they had a teacher's academy. I was going to be a teacher. But I applied to classical too. I took the test, didn't think I was going to get in, but I got into both schools. And I had to decide which school I was going to go to. My best friends were going to classical. My mind says, well, your best friends are going to classical. The #1 school in the state of Rhode Island, Johnny. So that's what you have to do. You have to go to classical. Went to classical. It was the worst 4 years of my life. And not that the school is a bad school. It's extremely challenging. It's a very challenging school. But then 10th grade was very tragic for me. One of my friends committed suicide and the other one dropped out. So I had to finish the next 2 years by myself. And I'm saying to myself, I don't want to be here, but I have to open my mind to this opportunity that I've been given to be at this #1 school in the state of Rhode Island. They didn't make it, so I have to make it. And then I went to URI. So I got my degree in psych from URI. I thought I was going to be in the nursing program, got in, that didn't work. But then I realized that life just does not work the way we think it's going to work. So you have to be open to change. And when I was introduced to Legal Shield, I wasn't looking for a business, but what I started to learn, it just changed my life so much. And, you know, having an open mind helps you to turn lemons into lemonade. When you have a bad situation, you have to figure out how to solve that problem. And so for me, I've taken all these life lessons, and I keep open to new opportunities, even if it doesn't feel good. Like right now, I'm supposed to be writing this book that Ron is making me write this book. No, sir, I'm writing the book because I need to write the book. And it's not comfortable, but you, like the muscle, you have to stretch yourself or you're going to just be stuck in the same place. And for me, being stuck in the same place isn't an option.
Yeah. So I like, I'm thinking about it in my head, and some of the stuff I'm thinking about is kind of this, what you had said before about, you know, starting a business, having a problem and reaching it, but then also these different intersections where, okay, here's a problem, how do I fix it? I'm also thinking about almost a little bit of the opposite of, instead of looking at things as a problem, like, okay, I'm here, how do I keep this momentum going? And you had said at the beginning, you talked about, well, I started my business and I thought I had to be everywhere, and then I broke my foot and I couldn't be. And all of a sudden I had to have this help. And I know when we spoke before, it was, okay, now the world has gone virtual, and so how am I going to keep this momentum going? So it's almost, to me, it's the open mind part is kind of like, I'm just not going to judge this as necessarily being bad. I'm just going to keep momentum going.
So for me, I look at problems as a good thing, honestly,
Okay.
because my philosophy is on to the next problem. I'm a professional problem solver. And that's what most successful businesses are. They solve a problem in the marketplace. They solve a need. When they see an issue, they try to make that issue better. And so I'm not going to act like problems don't happen. I'm going to embrace that problems happen, and I'm going to embrace that I need to be prepared to solve the problem. So when it comes, it does not just knock me out of the game. Like right now, so many people, they weren't prepared for this problem of COVID-19. Their business wasn't prepared, and they weren't mentally or emotionally prepared. And so what has happened to their business? It's collapsed. And so I could have chosen to say, you know what, I can't have events and restaurants, I'm going to just stop my business. But my open mind and my desire to solve this problem for my business has led me to taking it virtual, and my business has actually grown in the midst of a pandemic.
So I like what you said about, I don't look at problems as being a bad thing. And then the proof being in, this could be a challenge, but now you've grown in a time where people are really worried. What happens when you collect a lot of information? Do you find yourself ever at kind of that crossroads where, gosh, there's this person, this book, this influencer, this author, this person I've been following that I've gotten a lot of. Now there's this other stuff, and they seem to conflict. These ideas are conflicting. When you find yourself, do you find yourself in that role? And if so, how do you kind of choose the path that feels the best one for you and your business?
Well, it really boils down to having your vision in place and knowing yourself and knowing what your values are. So when it comes to things that are not within Jevonya's value system, or you're asking me to do something that I'm not comfortable with doing, and I think it's going to be a detriment to my business vision, I'm not going to do it. So I was talking to Ron, my business coach, yesterday about when I first came to him and we were mapping out my business, and we were talking about where I see my business in a couple of years and charging money. And he suggested that I increase my fees. And I was like, no, there's no way that I'm going to do that because it didn't sit with my values. And so you have to really know what it is that you're looking to accomplish. You have to be very introspective and know who you are and understand what you're going to do and what you're not going to allow yourself to do. And so for me, there's some things that I read and I'm like, there's no way I'm doing that because it does not fit into who I am. And I don't care who it is who says it. John Maxwell, you could tell me to go do this, and if I love you, but if it doesn't fit in with my values, my religious values, or just my values as a person, I'm just not going to do it.
And what I like when you and I spoke before is when, we talked about, I think it was like the analysis paralysis, that you can keep collecting information. And one of the things that Jevonya had said was, here's the big difference. I collect a lot of information, but then I act upon it. And I think that, we have to remember that kind of forward motion. So that is a big difference between people whose business continue to grow. So we have a question. How big is the market of people who want to go to a 10-person meeting? Have you done market research on this?
The market is huge. Do I have numbers specifically? I do not have the numbers specifically. I know that there are hundreds of thousands of networking events all over the world, but that would fall under the analysis paralysis for Jevonya, so I stay away from it. And I just do what I do. I know eventually as I grow, I'm going to have to do those numbers. I don't know if I'm going to have to. It depends. I'm going to do what I want to do anyway.
You haven't, it sounds like you haven't struggled to fill these events.
Nope. They usually sell out. It's only 10 people versus needing to get 1,500 people to an event. So it's much easier and it's more manageable.
Where do you find people for your events?
I use social media big time. Facebook, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram. I boost ads occasionally on Facebook and Instagram. Right now my interns are posting on networking sites throughout the country. They each have 25 states, and that's how we got someone from Colorado. So we use technology to our advantage, and it's cost effective. Billboards don't work, and we use a lot of word of mouth marketing.
Okay. So on your structure, because this is, like you said, I'm a mom of 3, I have multiple businesses, I have other responsibilities. How do you fit it in your day? How do you make this stuff happen?
So I remember attending this business conference for Legal Shield, and it may have been one that I drove like 32 hours to Oklahoma to go to this event. I'm crazy like that, but it was necessary. And the person on the stage did this demonstration. So I just want you to visualize this with me. You may have seen it before or in a different format, but he had 3 buckets on the table. And the first bucket was empty. And the second bucket had sand in it, and the third bucket had rocks in it. And so he explained it that this first bucket, do you see the 3 buckets, Audra? You see them?
I see them.
So the first bucket, he said, this is your life. These are your 24 hours in the day. We all have this same bucket of 24 hours. And then he says to the bucket with the sand, he says, these are the small things in life. These are, the social media, these are the video games, these are the watching the TV, these are all the small things. They're nice, we love the small things and we need them. But then we got these rocks. Nobody likes the rocks. The rocks are heavy, but these are the big things in your life. And so he did this demonstration where he says, what most people do is they take the sand, and so he poured the sand into the bucket. And these were same size buckets. So he poured the sand into the bucket and the sand took up the whole bucket. And he says, so you put all the small things in and you still have your rocks. You can't put the rocks in. There's no place for the big things. And he says, how about we do it in the reverse? So he took the sand out. Do you see him taking the sand out, Audra? Mm-hmm. Then he puts the rocks in first. Rocks fill up the bucket and then he pours the sand in. And you know what happens? Everything fits. Everything fits. And so that visualization made me think, okay, I need to make better use of this 24 hours in this day that I have. And so I have to put those big things in first. And so I actually sat down and wrote down 24 hours in the day. What do I do from this time, this time? What do I do from this time to this time? And I realized that there were a lot of gaps where I could be doing other big things. And so when you think about it, we all have 24 hours in a day. If you sleep 8 hours, that leaves you with 16 hours. Maybe you work 8 hours, that still leaves you with 8 hours. If you need to travel and transition, that's another, say, 2 hours. That leaves you down with 6 hours a day. Maybe you need to eat, get dressed, and all that, another 2 hours. Then you have 4 hours left in your day. What are you going to do with those 4 hours? And so I reminded myself, I need to do something for my business with those 4 hours. So I keep a schedule on my door. I use Google Calendar religiously. I make sure that everything is on the calendar. I use Calendly, which is also a free version of it, where I put on there, I block out times for my big things. Like my big things are my religion, my children, my reading, my work. I have to have time for that, but then I also have to have time to have fun for those small things, the sand-like things. So having a structure is integral to growing yourself personally and professionally, and also growing your business.
And what I appreciate, when I scheduled an appointment with Jevonya, she shared her calendar with me, and it's there's different areas. Like when you're talking about, okay, what do I have for these things? Here are my big things. And like you said, you know, my family, my religion, forget what one of your other, the kind of the non-negotiable, these major things. But even on the calendar, it was like, here's my availability for this type of thing. Here's my availability for this type of thing. And I thought that was a really interesting way of saving your time and being more kind of tech savvy by saying, here's the calendar, you find your place on it, but then also knowing that I can do something twice a week when it falls into this category, but I can only do it once a week when it falls into this one.
Exactly. Yep.
That was really interesting. That was Calendly?
Calendly. Yep. And so they have a free version where you can have a couple of events on there. And then they have a paid version. It's about $100 for the year, where you can have unlimited events, and they do reminders and text messages and all other things to help you manage your time. It's color coordinated, and you just send a link, and it's just easy enough. And then it pops up on your phone.
Which I think the more and more, I mean, I am definitely like a paper, I like nice pens, but the busier I've gotten, the more I just can't do it, because it means that I have to bring things, and I have a habit of like, well, I put it in this bag, but not in this bag. So I know for me, it's just straight up my Google Calendar, but that's become that one stop. It is where I manage everything. And it's just becoming more and more necessary. Do you know if Calendly syncs up to like Google Calendar?
It does.
Okay.
And it syncs up to Zoom as well. So if you wanted to schedule a meeting and make it a Zoom meeting with me, it will automatically send you the link. It syncs with a lot of different technology platforms.
Great. So this is kind of my last slide on trying to get a little bit more information. One of the things I'm curious about is your support team, and probably your mom, because you've mentioned her a few times. What does, like you said, your time is going in a lot of different areas. You have a bunch of different responsibilities. What does your support team look like to make this all happen?
So my support team, my parents, my mom and my dad, they've been wonderful over the years, you know, to be a foster mom and to adopt 3 kids and to want to travel in the midst of it all too, to build these businesses. They've been helpful with, you know, taking me to the airport and keeping the kids while I go away. They're big support emotionally as well, because building a business is an emotional thing. So you need to have those people that are cheering you on all the way, especially when you have the self-doubt. I was talking to my mom last night, and I'm like, I can't do this. And she's like, you got it. You're going to be perfectly fine. So my mom and my dad, I love them. I appreciate everything that they've done for me. Ron Crossan with Urban Ventures, my business coach. I've paid business coaches over the years, and I'm telling you, I haven't gotten as much from having him. You know, he's been amazing. And he's been for free. He's done more for me than the paid ones have done over the years. So I really appreciate having Ron on my team. And I've had great relationships with my 2 interns. They're a big support right now too, because it goes from being a one-person band to now I have a team of, workers alongside of me, and it just shows me where this is going to go in the future. So I have to be prepared to, do timesheets and paychecks and all that other good stuff. So that's fun. And then I have amazing business partners and friends through Twisted Networking and Legal Shield. I've met some wonderful people who are confidants, who are workout partners. They push me, and I have some great people in my life.
I appreciate that they're in a bunch of different directions. So it's not just that one bucket, but these are a lot of different areas. And I also appreciate when you and I spoke before, you had mentioned like those business coaches and these people that you've paid, and you said, I know the value. Like if I'm paying for them, then I'm going to make sure that I really intentionally use that time. That's a person that might not be on my team for very long. So while they're there, I'm going to make the most use out of them.
Yeah, and I've learned a business coach is there for certain points in life. Initially I needed a business coach to help with mindset and confidence and personal development. And then I needed a business coach to help with strategy. And now I need a business coach to help with growth. So, it's not a one-stop shop with your business coach. You're not going to be with this one person for the rest of your life. You're going to get a business coach when you need a business coach. And it's an investment in your business. So once you invest in yourself, it's going to come out, you're going to get a return.
We've talked about this over the past 2 weeks too, of like, do I have to know everything? And, as you said, like if it's my business, I kind of am everything, but it doesn't mean I have to be the one doing everything. Or when I hit this roadblock, there's somebody who can answer that question, and maybe I'm the best person, or maybe I'm not.
That's one of the great things about having a network and owning a network company, because you're not going to know everything. And I mean, Google is my best friend. I Google a lot of stuff. I'm a forever student, and I'm always looking for an answer to solve the problem. But sometimes I need a person to go to. I need someone to talk to. And so when you have a network of people from a diverse background, it's extremely helpful. So if I have a question about, things that my CPA could help me with, I have tons of CPAs in my network, and maybe I don't like what this one says or how this one says it, but I have another one to go to. So you're not going to know everything. Don't expect to know everything. In the beginning, you are going to be everything. That's just the way it is as a startup. But you have to know that one day you're not going to be alone, and you only can do what you can do. You got 24 hours in a day. So, one of the things as an entrepreneur that I've learned is I have to be careful with myself and not to put too much pressure on me and expect perfection, because it's not possible. And to just be patient with yourself. You're only going to be able to do so much. But if you have a network, if you go out there and network and build people around you, they're going to freely give you information.
And I appreciate you've talked a lot about like the creating community, and it seems like there's been a lot of community around support team, but also being very strategic, seeing what resources exist that can help you grow your business. Then talking about within your own business, part of creating that community is a little bit of fun, but a lot of I'm going to get to know the person, build their confidence. Anything else you would add about creating and connecting community?
So my personal quote is, networking is the #1 key to success in this game called life. I started playing chess when I was 5 years old. My dad taught me how to play chess. And so when I look at life, I see it as a game. You have to have the fun. You have to bring some fun into it, because if it's all of the doom and gloom, you're not going to win. And you want to win at life. And I really believe that having a network of knowledgeable, professional people that care about you is what's going to help you long term. And even if it's not just business, it's long term as a person. And community is very important to me. When you grow up, your friends and family are typically people who are just there. You don't get to choose your friends and your family, really. You're just around these people, or your parents chose them. But as you grow up, you can create your own community. You can pick and choose who you want to spend your time with. And so I really believe that being around people that are going to pour into you and help you grow, that's the best thing, especially when you're trying to grow a business, because it's an evolutionary process. You can't just stay stagnant. You have to have people who are going to give you the information and give you the resources that you need, and you have to act on them as well.
It sounds like challenges too, because you said, Ron, he's pushing you and making you stretch. So what about, you're an introvert, you lead a networking piece. What are just a couple of tips if I am introverted, if I feel super uncomfortable, if I am trying to build my network, but I'm not sure how to go about it? What tips would you share with fellow introverts?
So for fellow introverts, I would highly recommend you do some research on what it is to be an introvert. That actually changed a lot of my perception, because we get these negative ideas that being an introvert, you're shy, you're unemotional, you're afraid of people, but that is far from the truth. Introverts are really people. We love people. We just are not energized by being around people. It's a lot of energy. So after this, I'm gonna have to go take a nap, because this is a lot of energy for introverts. So for my fellow introverts out there, understand who you are as an introvert and understand your strengths. Understanding that will help you to network better. We are natural listeners, and that's what networking is really about, is learning to listen to people. A lot of networking events, most people are talking and they're not listening, so they're not really networking. They're just talking at people. So that's one of our strengths. Find small group events. Twisted Networking is the ideal place. It's created by an introvert for introverts, so it's the ideal place to come. Find smaller things that are going to be more comfortable for you. Use subtle ways to market. Like I always wear my logo on my clothes. That's a subtle way to market and build your network, because people are going to say, hey, what's that? And just find comfortable ways to get yourself out there. Understanding that in order for you to grow your business, you're going to need to have people buy from you. And the only way people are going to buy from you is if they know you. So understanding why you're networking and reading books on how to develop your leadership is going to definitely help you get out there more.
Thank you. So I'm going to give you one last question. This will be our final question, and then we'll close out. But in the spirit of fun, since you ask fun and more introspective, one of my colleagues' favorite questions is, what is on your bucket list that you want to do?
All right, I love it. So I want to go to Africa. That is on Jevonya's bucket list. This year I was supposed to go over there, but COVID-19 and all this happened. So right now it's on hold for now, but I still might actually be able to do it at the end of this year, might bring. But I really would like to go to Africa. My all-time goal is for Twisted Networking to be the #1 networking company in the world. That is on my bucket list. So before Jevonya goes, you will see Twisted Networking as the #1 networking company.
That is an awesome. For those of you who do want to learn more about introverts, if you are, or if you live with them, somebody just wrote in that the book Quiet by Susan Cain. Actually, I have this book at home. I had started reading it too. It is a really good book to kind of understand all the things that Jevonya was saying. This has to do with energy, not being a people person or shy. It's just a matter of where do I feel my best and the most energetic. So, Jevonya, thank you so much. Thank you for getting pushed out of your comfort zone. This was wonderful. A lot of great resources. Once again, I'll share with everybody, including you, the recording and also the what you had mentioned about Calendly, and I'll share Quiet as another book resource. And that is all.
Thank you so much, Audra.
Thank you. Thank everyone for joining us. I know it's Friday, it's sunny, and you all enjoy your weekend. Take care, everybody.
Awesome. You too. Bye-bye.